Okay, so let's look at this next question. I think a lot of these questions have been good. They do take a little time to read through, but they are good practice questions for understanding theory of what's happening at the margin, discussing short-term decisions, and um, really decision making. So the question here, I'm sure you've read this, is that um, do we go on to finish making a product, or do we just sell it off where we are right now? And this question requires us to find what that, if you like, additional revenue is from the point of where we are to where we could finish it off. So, for example, what we're looking at here is that because we have certain losses that happen if you carry on. But anyway, let's take an L for example. So if you just kind of get to where you are with L, your revenue because there's 2 points, isn't there? There's sort of this first point of getting to L, and then there's the next point of getting to LS. So if I just get to L, my revenue is going to be 6,000 units times £4, which is £24,000. Now, if I decide to go ahead, what ends up happening, I'll just change my pen color. I'll do that for all of them, but I want to use L as to illustrate, is that I'm going to lose 10% of L just because of the process cost, evaporation, the process itself. But you are able to sell these new units because you lose 10% of L, but it's going through a further process to become LS, and you can sell them for £6.50. So let's just do that. So what you now have is 6,000. You lose, when I mean you lose 10%, so it's really 90% that will come out of the process times £6.50, and that is 35,100. So the question then becomes, is the additional revenue for carrying on is the difference, isn't it, from 24 to 35,100 times 24,000, and that's 11,100. So I can get here's my incremental revenue, 11,100, right? That's my incremental revenue. But I have a clear additional cost. It tells me that your additional fixed cost per period for going from L to L is 2,000. So there is a net benefit of 100, and then you have 9,100. So it does make sense. It's perfectly fine to well, sorry, forgive me. That's your additional fixed cost, and of course we have to take into consideration um, the for each further process the variable cost as well. So I almost forgot that. Let's just include that. So easy to do that. And so my incremental cost is really made up of in the process. You will have here £1.20 times 6,000 times 90%, because you're going to lose a few. So what you're going to have is 1.2 times 6,000 here times 0.9, and then you're going to have here 6,480. So you're going to have 6,480 plus 2,000, 0.848. So 8,480, and therefore your net benefit is going to be 11,100 minus 8,480, giving you a net benefit of 2,620. So in LS, in this process, it does make sense. It tells us here these are the individual costs as we go onwards. This is what we should go. So on this ground, I should accept L. We'll just do the others in a second. Right, let's carry on with the rest. So I've shown you what happens with LS. You could pause that and pause the tape and do the rest of ES just to see for yourself. But let's just carry on with ES and do the same thing, just because of space. Terrible, I always use the same page. This is recorded, so you can always go back. I'm going to go through exactly the same process. So talking about E, I'm making 5,000 units of E, 5,000 units of E. The revenue is currently 5 times 5. That's 25,000. So if I carry on to do that, I'm going to have 5,000, 90% of that, and my revenue is going to be £7.50. So when you do that, you have 5,000 times 0.9 times £7.50, and that's 33750. That's 33750. 33750. So my additional revenue, of course, is those two things, and that takes me to 8,700 and 8,750. What is my additional expense? What is my additional expense? So I have here £1.75 times 5,000 times only 90% of those surviving if you like, and that's what I have, plus this additional fixed cost of 750. So let's work this out first. £1.75 times 5,000 times 0.9 gives me 7875. So 7875 plus 750, which was the fixed cost, 8625. 8625. So I still have 8750. I still have an advantage, a net benefit of 125. So you should go forward and complete. So then let's look at the last one here. The last one here says to us that what is the picture if we let's just sort of take this and do all of this here, sort of deal with this. Let's deal with this here. What's the picture when you do A? So with A, you're selling 4,000 units. You could stop and just do 4,000 units at £6 and stop there, or you could carry on. And if you carried on, you would have 4,000 times 90% of that times £8.50. And if you do that, you have 4,000 times 0.9 times £8.50, which is 30,600. And so the increase is 6,600. That is your increase of 6,600. And when I check the costs of that, that's 4,000 times 0.9 times £1.50 plus this whooping additional fixed cost of 2,050. So I'll do this one first. So 4,000 times 0.9 times £1.50 is 5,400. So that's 5,400 plus the fixed costs of 2,022.50, 7,650. That's 7,650. 7,650, and you can see now it's not as profitable to carry on. So it's 1,050 loss. So you should not be carrying on with that further process, if you like, in that sort of scenario. Right, and then they go on to ask us that what should we think about before making this decision? Because currently what you do is you process exactly half of the output further and sell it as this, and sell the other half as LE and A. Well, there's a number of things here. If you decide to follow this process, it means that you will stop finishing off AS, because it's not profitable technically to finish off AS. But the reason you're doing this means that you must have demand for your current demand is to do a half split off of LE and A, and then LS, ES, and AS. So certainly you're going to upset or make some customers, the ones who demanded AS, unhappy. That's the problem. That's the first thing. I mean, we are assuming, again, you have to assume that these are very independent products. And so if you have clients who need these products in combination and they always get them from you, you are now sort of causing that bit of a restriction. The other thing here is if you're going to go through with all of it, you're literally stopping I suppose you're only going to now produce AS to halfway. Then you lose the customers of L and E because you're no longer stopping, you're going through the entire process. So it's really about demand. You're looking at the demand and or trying to offset to see who's going to be upset and whether or not you have enough supply. Do you have enough demand because you're now going to be producing a lot of LSs and ESs? Do you have enough demand for that? So it's really a question of demand in terms of, do you carry on? So you can see here it says sales independent, but if you're not producing AS, will there still be demand for LS and ES? Or by not producing LE, will customers still want A? So it really is just a question of assessing the fact that you're going to be stopping the production of certain products. L and E will stop because you're now doing LS and ES. So is there enough demand for this? and what will you now deal with? How you deal with the customers who have always had LE? Yes, you're still producing A, but what about because you've stopped AS? What about the demand for AS, and is it in combination? So typically, it's really about customers and the extent of the demand for what you're for what you're making, and that's really how you deal with that. How you deal with that question. Okay.